People think you pop out of the womb with understanding business and that it's some sort of big failure if you don't get it. It's a skill just like everything else that needs support.
So true. I'm excited to find out that you are a Profit First pro. That book, if you haven't read Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, that just stop whatever you're reading, read that first and go back to whatever you were reading before.
Mhm.
That method literally saved my business a few years ago. Well, hello and welcome back to the Amanda Kaufman Show. We're continuing our series on coaches that don't suck. I am excited to invite a fellow CHPC certified high performance coach, Shelly Oswald, to the show. Hello, Shelly. How are you?
I'm good. Hi, Amanda.
So good to have you. Why don't you take 30 seconds and introduce yourself to the listeners so that they have an idea of what it is that you do?
Sure. I'm a business coach and I focus on solopreneurs. I help them understand the business side of business because that's usually, there's so many opportunities out there for marketing and for getting skills, but there's not much on the business side of business. So that's me.
Help help us unpack that. When you say the business side of business, what do you mean exactly by that?
I would say the financial aspects, there are certain tech tools that I work with. So Shopify is one of the big ones. I'm a QuickBooks Online Pro advisor. I had studied and had been certified as a Profit First professional.
Oh,
I was
cool.
also a pumpkin plan strategist. And having 35 years of business experience with both brick and mortar and online, there's just so many things that people think you pop out of the womb with understanding business and that it's some sort of big failure if you don't get it. It's a skill just like everything else that needs support.
So true. I'm excited to find out that you are a Profit First pro. That book, if you haven't read Profit First by Mike Michalowicz, that just stop whatever you're reading, read that first and go back to whatever you were reading before.
Hmm.
That method literally saved my business a few years ago. It's just like you said, there's so much emphasis and in the marketplace, it's both being marketed and consumers are consuming all this like marketing training and sales training. My mission is to help entrepreneurs build a financially healthy business that they
Hmm.
actually love doing. So I'm really excited about how you're doing that. So, Shelly, I'm really curious what compelled you into wanting to become a coach that focuses on these things in the first place? You mentioned you had a lot of years of experience, but you could have pivoted, you could have gone another direction. Why do this?
I pivoted several different times throughout my life. I was really fortunate, and the more I go into my journey, the more I understand how fortunate I was. I was raised in a family of entrepreneurs. My great grandmother and great grandfather, they were the ultimate entrepreneurs that pivoted throughout, the early 1900s and through the Depression and grew the business. My great grandmother was a large force in my life. I spent a lot of time with her. My grandmother, her daughter, had a beauty shop. My mother, she had done different things with horses and dogs, showing dogs and racing horses. My dad was an accountant and ran the family business for my great grandmother. Having been raised in, I realized that a lot of people aren't fortunate enough to have that understanding. I had to gain skills to step up when I needed into the family business, which my husband and I ultimately purchased for my great grandmother. For me to be able to do that, it took skills. Now, getting to this stage of my life, it's time for me to give back.
Yeah, that's really cool. My great grandmother was actually a businesswoman as well. She ran a school that was established in the early 1900s. She was one of the top students at that school, and the previous owner sold it to her. She ran it from the 1940s through the 1980s.
Mhm.
And you don't hear too often about great grandmothers in business. So that's kind
Mhm.
of a cool thing we have in common. That's really neat.
That really is. And it's just, powerful women because it seems like that's something that's a new thing, but in reality, it's not, you know.
Yeah, I would say maybe not a common thing, but definitely not a new thing. I remember even as I was coming up in my career really did shift quite a bit as soon as I got married. And it wasn't because I was necessarily the one shifting it. It was the observation of those around me. It's like, oh, she's married now. She's going to have kids anytime now. Oh, she has kids. There's a really great book, and Mistake by Leslie Bennett. And she talks about how women are offered so many off ramps financially, like that, oh, it's okay. You got married. Oh, it's okay. You've got kids. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. And there's just like all these temptations for off ramps
Mhm.
to your financial future. And, that book really impacted me. So I'm actually really curious when you're working with solopreneurs, what do you see as the top thing people are really focused on lately in terms of wanting to have more success? Like, I'm hearing a lot of overwhelm in general from people that
Mhm.
I'm helping, but what are you hearing on the ground?
Yeah, it's the overwhelm and not having any systems and processes in order, and everything's just a big scramble. So, that's probably the big key, getting a rhythm in order, not having a calendar, not having any kind of a system or a process to anything from email and automations through bookkeeping the whole way through.
Yeah, it sounds like there's some high performing habits that could really help a lot of these folks. I am actually really curious about this because I see the same thing in my space. I help a lot of online entrepreneurs. I have some theories, but I'm really curious about your take. What is it that leads people to avoid creating systems in the first place? How do they get to this place where every day is a new fire drill, every day is really high anxiety, but like they clearly have a level of success, otherwise they wouldn't be able to hire you. So what do you think?
I think that when they get to the point when they're ready to hire me is the fact that they have realized that they need to get something has to give. So they've gotten to a point where there's a crisis or they're just out of time, they're overwhelmed, they just don't know where they're going to go next. So I think that people get to that because it's like with any business, most people get into that business because they're good at what they do or they have a skill. There's a lot of that within, especially like the online coaching space that promotes you have a skill, anybody can do an online course. Yes, but there's things that go with that. It's not just marketing, it's not just finding people. You start by raising awareness and spending your time trying to get clients. By the time you get clients, you have to build a system. It's always a catch up instead of saying, okay, these things are going to come at me in the future. I'm going to prepare for them while things are slower. While I'm looking to start building, I'm going to start understanding how to record my transactions in QuickBooks and have basic financials. I'm going to get my emails in order. I'm going to figure out and understand how to do a calendar. I think that there's just not enough discussion about being proactive about business skills. There's
Yeah.
so much about the marketing and you can do it, but not enough about the business skills.
Yeah, and I think my experience has been as well. A lot of people are just very intimidated by all of it. Even the marketing, it's a system, the regular rhythmic system. I think a lot of marketing that gets taught is very like this one hit wonder. Here's this one
Mhm.
campaign, or here's this one strategy that could help. One of the theories that I have is that people normalize overwhelm. They think, oh, that's normal. I should be really overwhelmed. Or a second thing that I often hear is like, I'll do it when I'm successful, then I'm going to go back and I'm going to create the records. Or, you know, are you hearing kind of the same thing? And if so, like what's your top strategy for somebody to get them like kind of out of that reactive place and into a proactive place?
I would say, especially one of the groups that I've worked with has been farms because I have a farm.
I
We
remember
also
us
sell
talking about
grass-fed,
the
yeah,
Roomba.
the chickens and the cows. But especially with the farms, and I think this really goes, it's a generational kind of thing that there's the hustle culture that you need to work hard and that working hard is what's going to get you forward, not working smarter. And
Yeah.
that's where, especially with the business stuff, people get overwhelmed with not understanding where to start and not understanding that business isn't something, like I said, you just don't pop out of the womb and you're like, you've got business skills. It's something that
Even if
you
you're
have to
fourth
work at.
generation,
Even if you're
right?
fourth generation, that's one of the messages. Even if you come from a family of entrepreneurs where you see that everybody says that you can do it and you see it being done, there's still so many skills you need to learn. There's a different set of skills when you purchase a business, that business usually has some sort of systems and processes already set up. Whenever you're starting your own business, you have to create those. So it adds a whole nother level of
Exactly.
complexity that is usually not addressed whenever you hear the rah rah, you can start a business. You can do it, but just do it with your eyes wide open that it's absolutely crucial for you to be sustainable in the long run. It's absolutely crucial for you to get those basic business skills and get those systems and processes in order. It's so much more than marketing and being good at what you do.
I'm really curious, Shelly, what role has coaching played for you in your journey?
Okay, well, the coaching is actually a little bit newer part of my journey. Consulting has been more of it up until this point. So coaching was a very big pivot for me because I realized that I didn't want to do the work for anybody anymore, which was the consulting. I wanted to empower people to be able to do the work on their own. I
Oh,
felt
yeah.
that I was taking the responsibility, and also I realized that I was taking the responsibility and I was also, not empowering people. I was actually disempowering them by doing it for them. When I came to that realization, it became a pivot to a different place.
I love that. I love how you're like thinking in the long term about what's good for the client. You know, it's interesting you bring that up because I had a 10-year consulting background as well. I found that the coaching skills really help people take all of the process documentation we did, all the tools we did, all the tech that we did, and it helped them own their own implementation for their own good of what they wanted to do because I was
Hmm.
shifting how I was communicating and managing with
Hmm.
change that it was more left in their court, right?
Oh,
So
absolutely.
that's really cool. So what have you found to be maybe some of the surprises along the way as you've brought coaching into the fold? Has it gone completely exactly as you thought it would, or have there been any surprises?
At this point in time, it's been pretty much as I expected. I feel so much better about watching my clients' progress. It's just been really fulfilling in that respect.
That's really cool. So, Shelly, I love asking this in this segment is what are the three things that you think help a coach not to suck?
That- That's a good question. I think that the first thing is that you need to ask the hard questions. You
Go there.
you need to have the empathy for the person that you're working with, but you need to hold them accountable. And I think the third thing is you need to be organized.
That's so good. I actually just did another podcast interview with someone and they said basically the same thing, especially that third point
Good thing.
about the organization. We were talking
Mhm.
about what it means to go pro. I like to tell people the coaching industry is a super low barrier to entry and a
Oh
super
yeah.
high barrier to success because the success it requires you to I love systems. I'm like totally biased
Mhm.
there. But, even with marketing and sales, one of the big costly lessons I've learned is you can have the best marketing in the world, but if you don't have a great system for relational follow-up that
Mhm.
is authentic and really connected and, helpful, then it doesn't really matter what you do in regard to marketing. In sales, you could be the most die-hard committed salesperson, but if you don't have marketing to back you up, to showcase what your business is doing, you're going to find sales is always an uphill climb. The trouble I got into, I thought I made it back in 2018. I was selling at a high level and I had all these clients and they were amazing and I was having this awesome experience. But I needed to learn what I learned in Profit First around systemized decision making regarding finance because I was so interested in growth and expansion and people were giving me advice all the time about
Mhm.
having more team and having more systems. Before I knew it, my P&L was completely screwed up.
Yeah.
If people wanted to follow you or catch up with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Probably the best right now is on Instagram at I am Shelly Oswald, SHELLYOSWALD. Yeah.
What's one thing that you're really working on right now that you're excited about?
My app, my Kajabi app.
Tell us about this
Oh
app
yeah.
before we go. Yeah,
Oh
what
yeah.
are you
Yeah.
building?
Okay, so on Kajabi, you can have a custom branded app, and
Yeah.
it makes the integration between community and the courses very easy because everything's on that app. So you can listen to everything on the go. You can actually communicate through the community right from the app. For me, I find that social media is like a huge time suck. So the least amount of time I can spend there is better whenever you have to remember all these different logins in order to go in to participate in a community. I found that that's been a challenge. I'm in the middle of building that right now. I've got my Google developer's license, my Apple developer's license, and I'm putting the test course on. Hopefully within a month or so, that'll be launched.
That sounds like a really good enhancement for your community.
Thank you. Mhm.
Well, listener, thank you so much for joining us for another episode. Do us a favor, go ahead and leave a 5-star review along with what you loved about it and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you've got a friend or two who is in the midst of business building, forward this episode to them so they can get some ideas and insights on how to get unstuck. We'll see you next time.